Okay, so it's good to see everyone today. Our portion this week is Terumah, and in the Eitz Chaim, we're on page 485. In any other edition of Chumash you're using, we're looking to Exodus chapter 25. So again, the portion is Terumah, and just a note, because this year is a leap year in the Jewish calendar, that means an extra month is added. It means also that portions that are usually doubled are not, for the most part. So that means, well, Terumah and Tetzaveh would never be doubled, but Vayakel and Pekudei, which in a couple of weeks repeat the details that are mentioned here, those portions are usually doubled, and this year they are not. So just a note about that. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Somebody else is just coming in. Okay. I just said the bracha. We're just about to start on Terumah 485. So I wanted to read the first few verses, and then I want to look at something further on to be our focus of discussion about the Torah portion this morning. So before I start reading, let's recall the context from the Torah itself. So we had the portion Yitro, which described the revelation of God at Mount Sinai and that experience that the people of Israel had in hearing God's word. Then we had last week's portion Mishpatim, which provided a lot of law that would legislate their civil society. So you had the 10 commandments to be like the general underlying moral religious principles of society. You have Mishpatim to provide the ethical principles of society and some other specific rules as well. And now the focus shifts to the spiritual aspect of society, and that is the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. So as the commentary points out below the line on 485, the idea then is that we have three aspects of Jewish life combined here, like being brought forward in the Torah. We have sacred deeds, sacred space, and sacred time. So we're told about the holidays and Shabbat. We're told about the space, that is the Mishkan, to be built, and sacred deeds, that is the laws that we are supposed to follow. And so these three aspects are intertwined in what it means to behave as a Jew today, and to behave and believe as a Jew. So the question is now, as we're about to read this, is, did this actually happen in history? Did the people have the wherewithal to construct such a Mishkan as described here in the Torah? So as I read, we'll talk about that question. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses, saying, 486 verse 2, Daber el bnei Yisrael, veyikchu li terumah me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, tikchu et terumati. Speak to the people of Israel. I'm going to translate literally. And take for me a gift, or something that has been elevated, terumah. So from from the root resh mem hey, which means to lift up or to raise up. So a terumah is something that's been lifted. So it's specifically, it's a gift for a higher purpose. Okay, so it's not just charity for the poor, it's a gift to God. So take for me a gift, but this elevated offering from among all people whose heart is so giving. Take my gift, or take a gift for me. So in other words, this is a commandment for people to give, but it's only to take it from people who want to give it. So is it really voluntary when God commands it? So it's kind of like putting threatening the people. You kind of have to give because God is commanding this gift, but it's only for those who want to. So it's like, not saying that God is being demanding or unyielding here. It just questions the Hebrew wording, that those whose heart so move them. Well, the heart is supposed to be moved because God is commanding it, and so there should be 100% participation then. So what is the gift that God is commanding? Verse 3, V'zot ha-terumah asher tikhu me'itam zahav v'chesef unechoshet. So this is the elevated gift that you should take from them, gold and silver and copper, and utechelet v'argaman v'tolaat shani v'shesh v'izim. And these are the colors, are meant to be fabrics that are dyed in this color, and they are more special because the dyes here are more expensive and used for, it's to denote wealth and make it seem as if it is something special. So just like the metal, gold, silver, and copper, so you have the equivalent in dyed fabrics, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, tolaat shani, that is, fine linen, and goat's hair, v'shesh v'izim. Oh, Techelet argaman v'tolaat shani are blue, purple, and crimson yarns. Shesh is linen. Ve'izim is goat's hair. So it could be the fleece of the goats, or it could also be goat skin. But the skin, I guess, is verse 5. Ve'orot, so this is the leather, or the skins. Ve'orot elim mo'odamim. Ve'orot techashim. Va'atzei shitim. And there should be tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood. So, orot elim odamim means tanned ram skins. Orot techashim means dolphin skins. Va'atzei shitim is acacia wood. Now, before we go, and 6, okay, 6 and 7, and then I want to comment on this. Shemen lamaor, bisamim leshemen hamishcha, veliktoret hasamim. Oil for lighting, that's also what God wants. Spices for the anointing oil and for the aromatic incense. 7, avnei shoham, va'avnei miluim, la'ephod ve'lachoshen, and lapis lazuli and other stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastpiece. So we haven't been told about the ephod and breastpiece yet, but God is setting the context here. This is all the material I'm going to need for this Mishkan and also for the vestments for the Kohanim that I'm about to describe to you. Okay, now, anything about this material that strikes you as kind of odd for being commanded in the desert to build this Mishkan? Anything odd about it? Do you think the people had access to gold, silver, copper, yarns of blue, purple, and crimson, linen, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins and dolphin skins, acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil, lapis lazuli and other stones? I think so. Remember, the people just left Egypt 2.5 months before, right? Just 2.5 months ago, they left Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt. So how are slaves supposed to be able to have such material? Now, the commentary always points out that, well, they were showered with gifts by the Egyptians when they were leaving Egypt. Okay, but were they showered with dolphin skins? So maybe they were, it's unlikely, really. Just picture that. They're leaving Egypt, and the Torah describes a couple of times that the people are showering them with gifts. Or, depending on how we read it, the people, the Israelites were looting the Egyptians. That could be more likely. I can't imagine, as this group of slaves are leaving, that people are actually throwing things at them to, like, as gifts. Get out of here so that we can be protected from your absence or by your absence. You know, why else would these things be thrown at them? It might make more sense that as the Egyptians are suffering through the death of the firstborn, that that the Israelites are robbing them blind. Now, that could be after 200 or so years of being slaves. Here they are free, and human instinct takes over, and they go into their masters' homes and take the valuables from the homes. That can be a more real, it's not a nice thing to think about, and we certainly don't want to promote that image of that's what the Israelites did when they left Egypt. Okay, so that's why the image of Egyptians showering the Israelites with gifts is a more palatable image than one of the Israelites looting the Egyptians. But the looting makes sense, and I don't think it takes away anything from the transformation of this group of people into a holy nation. So even though they were looting, God is still performing miracles for them, and even is helping to transform them into this new kind of nation, a nation that at Mount Sinai hears the laws that will define their society, and has an opportunity to build a structure through which they can worship God. Okay, so even the lowliest of people who become looters at a time of salvation, can be transformed. But the medieval, the rabbis of the Mishnah and Talmud and the medieval rabbis don't like to consider that that the Israelites may have looted the Egyptians. So they prefer, even the word in the Torah that could be understood as looting is translated by some commentators as freed the Egyptians of these items. So, as if, to kind of whitewash the idea that they were looted. But how else can we explain in context, if this is happening at the time being described, how else would the Israelites have had these products, that the only thing that might have been available to them was the acacia wood, which grows in the desert. So that would have been available. But everything else, where are they getting the oil from? How do they have the means to make oil? Are they carrying millstones with them? Right? To make oil, olive oil, you have to have olives. And to have olives, you have to have olive trees. And then you need a mill with a heavy stone that crushes the olives in order to make the oil. So are they schlepping this mill out of Egypt with them and carrying it through the desert? So rather unlikely to do so. And the dolphin skins, where are they getting the dolphin skins from? If not having looted the Egyptians from that. And in the desert, there are no dolphins in the desert, and they're quite far from the sea where there would be dolphins. And again, if they're slaves, how do they have the knowledge and the equipment in order to fish dolphins out of the sea and then to slaughter them, skin them, and prepare the dolphin skins for use? Okay, so if if this is something that's being described as happening at the time, the only way to explain it is that they looted the Egyptians and had this material. The other way to explain it is two other ways to explain it. One is God provided the material for them, but that doesn't exactly make sense when God is asking the Israelites to bring this material themselves. Okay, so it kind of it would be a roundabout, kind of odd thing for God to ask them to bring it and then God providing it so that the people can get it and use it to make all the items for the Mishkan. The other idea is that perhaps this is something described from later in history and then just put here in the Torah. So when the people make it into the land of Israel 40 years later, as they're settling the land and setting up a permanent worship space, perhaps for that space, they're using all this material. And then they backtrack it into the Torah to say, oh, this was commanded in the Torah. It was used in the desert. Now we have it here in Shiloh, as the book of Joshua and the book of Judges describes as the place where the Mishkan was set up. So again, it raises the issue, when is this commanded? And the fact that some of the material here is not likely for Israelites to have, it begs the question for scholars as to when this was written. Okay, so that's all of that. And then verse 8, I see as an important verse. Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Make for me a sanctuary, a holy place, right? Mikdash, the root is kuf daled shin, kadosh, holy, kiddush that we say on Friday night, kaddish that we say when in mourning, all of that from kuf daled shin. So mikdash is a place of holiness. Make for me a place of holiness, and I shall dwell among them. Them being the people of Israel. Okay, so it is, I think, on the old B'nai Israel building on 16th Street in DC. If you drive back that building, it's a green domed building on 16th Street. I'm sure you've seen it. It is now the 19th Street Baptist Church, which is funny that the 19th Street Church is on 16th Street, but it is the former B'nai Israel. And on the side of the building still is this verse. And if it's not the B'nai Israel building, then it's either Ohev Shalom on 16th Street or Tiferet Israel on 16th Street. It's one of those buildings on 16th Street that has this verse in it. Okay, so many synagogues have this verse etched into the side of the building, saying, "Make for me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell among them." Right? To kind of give the reason why this building exists. Okay, this building that is Tiferet Israel of Shalom or B'nai Israel that has this quote on it, right? To kind of justify from the Torah itself why we need to have a building. It's an opportunity to show that God dwells here in this place, which then leads to the Catholic Church to have ornate cathedrals built throughout Europe, where the poor peasants of Europe were enslaved to build these huge edifices for the glorification of God, right? And I think it was on the news last night, the scaffolding of the rebuilt Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, which suffered major fire damage 5-6 years ago. The scaffolding is slowly coming down so that the rebuilt Notre Dame Cathedral, which the French government has invested lots of money to rebuild it because it's a national icon, is going to reopen in December. So you think about cathedrals and the purpose of the building and what is involved in the building. And later in the Bible, the same questions can be asked too, because it's described in the first book of Kings what King Solomon did in order to build the temple in Jerusalem, and how he conscripted the bulk of the male population of Israel for the construction of the temple, and imported material, cedars of Lebanon, King Hiram of Lebanon, escorting this cedar wood for the construction of the temple in Jerusalem. So it then causes us to ask, is a building worth all this, the literal blood and sweat and tears of the workers in order to have a holy sanctuary? So in other words, is a holy sanctuary supposed to be built on the blood, sweat, and tears of the workers? Or are you supposed to find a happy medium where people want to do this work and build it? Okay, so the Mishkan, what else are the people doing in the desert other than walking to Israel? Why not build a Mishkan as you're doing that? You pause for a couple of months, take care of building this Mishkan, and it's portable and you can use it. But then to transform that Mishkan into this new structure in Jerusalem, the temple, which involves taxation and conscription, and then cathedrals in medieval Europe that also build upon that as well. Is that really what a mikdash is supposed to be? Or does that defeat the purpose of what a holy sanctuary is supposed to be? So make for me a sanctuary so that I dwell among you. Does God want to dwell in a place where people died in the construction, or people gave up, or were forced to work on this construction? Is that really a way to show God's holiness? Now, this verse was also used to like take it away from holy sanctuary, to understand the metaphor of what a holy sanctuary is, and how in this COVID and post-COVID Zoom society, which this class is on Zoom, can we say when people come together on Zoom for a holy purpose, whether it is to study in a Torah study class like this, or to make a minyan, to provide an opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of public prayer and to allow mourners to recite Kaddish, is that a fulfillment of Asuli Mikdash v'Shachanti B'tocham? Many rabbis during the time of COVID, when COVID first came upon us in early 2020, were arguing this very fact. How else are we going to maintain community if not without Zoom? And so when we come together on Zoom, then we are digitally, virtually creating this holy sanctuary. And so I argue that this is still the case today. You know, it's interesting too, our thoughts about this and our understanding of Zoom and the place of digital technology in community changed. Before COVID, I would have been opposed to incorporating people attending a Zoom minyan with a minyan. But now, during Zoom, we had no choice. And post Zoom, our congregation, I feel, still has no choice. The only way that we make a minyan in the evening is over Zoom. And the only way we make a minyan in the morning when we have in-person and Zoom is by the hybrid, counting people who are physically in the chapel with the people who are on Zoom. There are synagogues, larger synagogues especially, who have said, no, we will not count people on Zoom in a minyan anymore, because making a sanctuary so that God can dwell among us is an actual physical, concrete thing that we're doing. And digital virtual doesn't count. It's only the people in the room together, physically there in the room, that can qualify to fulfill this verse of making a sanctuary. So it is still a debate today. So B'nai Israel, for example, or Kodesh, for example, other synagogues like that in our area and across the country have said, no, we will not count people on Zoom anymore. We will allow Zoom to be used for a service, but anybody attending on Zoom will be number 11 and 12, etc. But the first 10 to make the minyan have to be there in person. So it is commendable that they're doing this. There's power to people being in person, and the connection, community relationship that develops by being in person is important. But at the same time, if it's also important for other people, like there are people who attend on Zoom who otherwise could not physically make it to the building, right? And Zoom provides that opportunity for them to be counted in community. So I don't see us as a congregation changing our policy regarding Zoom. The only thing we did revert to is, once we came back into the building for Shabbat services, then on Shabbat and holidays, when we have more than a minyan of people in the building, then it's only the people in the building who participate in the service. Right? During the week, we allow people on Zoom to have an aliyah. But on Shabbat and holidays, we don't do that. So that's the way that we have been able to incorporate Zoom into the physical presence of the minyan. So every synagogue is different in how they do it, but it's all related to this verse, V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocha. Make for me a sanctuary so that I can dwell among you. And I firmly believe that this virtual sanctuary that we have created here for Torah study today on Wednesday, February 14th, is a mikdash. And I do firmly believe, which is why I always recite a bracha before studying, that God is dwelling among us. No less on Zoom than if we were in person physically. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that. And then let's go ahead to the second aliyah, now on page 488. And I want to talk about this, how the ark looked. Okay, so 488, chapter 25, verse 17, the start of the second aliyah. Okay, Va'asita chaporet zahav tahor, make a cover We don't know exactly what this cover looked like. This is a cover for the ark. The ark is described here from verses 10 through 16. Now you're making a cover for the ark, kind of like a lid to go on top of the ark. So make a cover of pure gold. Amatayim v'chetzi arka. 2.5 cubits is its length. Va'ama v'chetzi rachba. And a cubit and a half is its width. So if we think a cubit, the cubit is the length of the elbow to the end of your middle finger. So that's usually about 18 inches. So 2.5 cubits would be 36, and 9 is 45 inches. What is that? Almost 4 feet. And then 4 feet in length and 27 inches wide. 27 inches is just over 2 feet wide. Okay, so it's a significant piece of gold, a pure gold, to cover the ark, which the ark itself is covered inside and out with a layer of gold as well. All right, that's a lot of gold, by the way, to be able to have with you, to be able to melt down and fashion into these things. 18, va'asita shnayim kruvim zahav. So you should make 2 kruvim out of gold. Miksha ta'aseh otam. Make them of hammered work. Mishnei kitzot hakaporet, at the 2 ends of the lid. So if the lid is 4 feet long, on each end you're going to have a groove. We'll talk about the groove in a minute, what it looked like, but you're supposed to fashion a groove on either end of the kaporet. 19, va'aseh kruv echad mikatsa mizeh, uchruv echad mikatsa mizeh, min hakaporet, ta'asu et hakruvim al shnei katzotav. So make 1 groove on one edge, and another and 1 groove on another edge of the kaporet. Make the kruvim on its 2 edges. Okay. 20, Vahayu hakruvim porsei chenafayim lemala. So the kruvim have to spread their wings upward. Sochachim bekanfehem al hakaporet, thus covering with their wings the kaporet. All right, so if you picture these kruvim, whatever they are, at each end of the kaporet, their wings are overspread so that they would be covering by the wings being spread out, they're covering the kaporet. Ufinehem ish el achiv el hakaporet yehiyu penei hakruvim. And they are facing each other, facing one another on the kaporet. That such should be the faces of the kruvim. Venatata et hakaporet al ha'aron milamala, and you'll put the kaporet on the aron above it. Ve'el ha'aron titain et ha'edut asher etain alecha, and in the ark you shall put the testimony, the pact. It says here the testimony that I will give to you. So in other words, it will be that the 10 commandments themselves go into the ark. Above the ark is this lid, and on the top of the lid are these kruvim with wings. Now the question is, what are these kruvim? Okay, so I'd like to spend just a couple minutes. There's an article on one resource for scholarly articles about the Torah is thetorah.com. And these are scholars from Hebrew University, Bar Ilan University, the Jewish Theological Seminary, institutions like this that have Bible departments, and they all contribute articles that are for free on thetorah.com. So I searched on the website of the Torah.com. I put in cherubim, Cherubim, that's how it's the kruvim are spelled in English. And this article came up by a professor, Ra'anan Eichler, who is associate professor of Bible at Bar Ilan University and got his PhD from Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Okay, so he goes through quickly the scholarship of what the kruvim look like. So I'm going to share my screen because the pictures are nice and you can see what the pictures look like. So what could they be? Kruvim are mentioned, by the way. They're in the King Solomon had them there. They're mentioned here. And also they're mentioned as guarding the entrance to Garden of Eden. Okay, and it's also on the chariot that Ezekiel envisions. That's the Haftarah for Shavuot. His vision of God descending in a chariot, and a chariot has these winged creatures around it. So kruvim are mentioned, and also King Samuel talks about God being Yoshev Kruvim. Okay, and that God is a sitter on the kruvim, one who sits on the kruvim. Okay, so it all assumes that we know what kruvim look like. They're all winged creatures, but what is the creature? So there's one idea that it's a winged child, and we don't have pictures. He does not including pictures of that. That's based on Roman art, Greco-Roman art, and also Rabbi Avbahu in the Talmud mentions that Keruv, Kaf, Resh, here is how it's spelled, Kaf, Resh, Vav, Bet, in Aramaic would be Kaf, here, like this, Keruv, as Kiravya, Kaf, Resh, Bet, Yad, Yod, Aleph, which would mean like a child. So one popular understanding of what a kruv is, it's a baby with wings, kind of like Cupid, okay? Baby with wings, that's one idea. Or it could be a winged adult, and here's a picture, okay? So here are winged adults, and here's winged adults over this lid over the table on which the ark would go. Okay, so this is a depiction which is found in an illuminated manuscript, which is in the British Museum. Okay, an illuminated manuscript from France in the late 1200s. Okay, so this has the support of two medieval Bible commentators, Radak and Ralbag. So one idea, it could be winged adults. Or it could be a bird. So Rashbam and Chizkuni think that it's actually birds, and here are pigeon-like creatures in this picture over the ark with their wings outspread. Now so one wing, you see the awkwardness here. It says in the Torah, the wings are over the kaporet. So you have one wing of each bird over the kaporet. They're facing each other, like the Torah says, but the other wing is out this way. Okay, so they said, Rashbam and Chizkuni, that, and this is from an illuminated manuscript as well, of that they're just birds. Or they could be human-headed birds, so the son of Maimonides suggests that, or they could be winged bovine. So the place in Ezekiel 1 where there's like a head of an ox, heads of different animals make up these winged creatures on the chariot. So that's Ezekiel 1. In Ezekiel 10, the same description, it doesn't have shore, it has kruv. So some think that maybe it is a winged ox with a human head. So here you have an example from Greek archaeology and also from Assyrian archaeology. It's kind of hard to, you can see the wing here. right, over the creature of a cow or an ox with a human head. And the same thing here, you see the wing over the cow ox body, right? You see the hooves here, and then the human head. So it could be a winged bovine, or it could be a griffin. So here you have a griffin. It could be a horse or a lion with wings, and here it has a bird's head. Just by the way, on the Times of Israel today, no, not the Times of Israel, I get another email once a week, Israel 21C, Israel 21st Century, so interesting articles. Some hiker in Israel, a reservist on break from serving in Gaza, goes for a hike on one of the streams in the Galilee, sees an orange something in the stream, on the edge of the stream, picks it up and sees there's an etching on it, and the etching is a griffin. So it's a horse with wings, and he takes it to the Israeli Antiquity Authority, which you're supposed to do in Israel if you find anything of value in archaeology, which you can. Anybody can do it, and lots of stories of kids, and they get a certificate, whatever. So this was tested, and it's found to be 2,800 years old. This scarab, it's called. It's a little kind of a stone-looking piece that has this etching of a griffin on it. So 2,800 years old. So from the time of the Assyrians in Israel. So here's a picture of a griffin. This is a lion's body. You can kind of see the claws here, the wings here, and a bird head. So a raptor-headed winged lion. Maybe that's what the Kruv is. It could be a winged sphinx, right? So a human-headed winged lion. So that changes the griffin. The griffin has a bird's head. It becomes a sphinx lion body with wings with a human head. It could be that. And we have, so that's kind of what this image is. Here you go. This is the lion body, this is the wing, and that's the human head. And this is from Phoenician times. But it also has to be standing upright. So is this a lion then with wings and a human head standing upright? It's standing on the edge. So it's possible that it could be a composite creature. Ibn Ezra and another scholar think that it is just some kind of figure that has a variety of shapes and forms to it. But this guy thinks it's a winged adult. So, and kind of like Leonardo da Vinci's picture over here with the arms outstretched, this famous depiction of a human being, just picture that with wings instead, and that's probably what it is. And here are some other examples from the time of the Northern Kingdom in Israel, around the time when Solomon built the temple. So we're talking about 1000 BCE, roughly. All right, and you have then things that have been found from that time that is common to depict a human being with wings. So you have here this one picture, this picture, and this one's kind of harder to see. These are just drawings of things that actually were found. So different ideas then of what the Kruv is, because we don't know exactly what it is, but the Ra'anan Eichler, the author of this article, thinks that it is a winged human being, which still begs the question of what is an idolatrous form doing in the Mishkan? We're supposed to be worshiping God. Why do we have, it says in the Ten Commandments, you shall have no graven images before me. And here's God commanding a graven image. All right, so that also had difficult questions about artwork in the synagogue. And it's mostly concluded that as long as it's clear to everyone that we're not worshiping that it's just an artistic figure that helps focus our spirituality, then it's okay. Okay, so any questions or comments? Because that's those two things, where the material for the Mishkan, and then also what a kruv is. That's what I wanted to talk about today. So I wish everybody a good rest of the day, and we pray for peace in Israel, and take care, everyone. We'll see each other again next Wednesday.
Yashikah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.